Happy New Year, everybody. I have an interesting little thing to show. Okay, so 90 degrees out of phase square waves. Polyphase merged. Polyphase going through 5 transformers in series. Outputs are in parallel. Outputs come out to a terminal block and combine the parallel outputs. Okay, now the voltage is too high to feed back in currently. So coming out of the merged polyphase, that's going through 5 transformers coming out of the secondary. I'm stepping it back down. Okay. Now, I'm going to open the circuit first. Open circuit. 140 milliamps. Now I'm going to close the circuit, and we're going to see, remember this lead comes out of the bridge rectifier and goes back into the positive. And the negative's hooked up, so we're going to refeed the loop the circuit. Okay, it's looped. The power from the output is going back to the input. Okay, it's pulling 150 milliamps. We're sending in 207 milliamps. Now here's but the input doesn't really go down when we feed in. Actually, if we don't feed in, when we feed in, when we take this current and feed it in, the input goes up. Why would it go up? Okay, now, so I took this negative side of the rectifier that goes to the negative of the supply. I put a diode in there so I could hook my oscilloscope up on either side of the diode, looking at ground of the supply, the source, and ground of the rectifier. And what do I see? I see the negative side of the scope is hooked up to the output of the transformer bridge rectifier negative. The waves are going down. So the negative terminal of my bridge rectifier is showing 10 volts VRMS, a 20 volts peak to peak, higher at that time than the ground of the power supply. Okay, so I put a multimeter there to verify it. And my cheap multimeter, now I'm just measuring in between the grounds. This is one multimeter lead, which is going to the negative terminal, and this is one multimeter lead going to the negative terminal. I'm measuring the potential, the negative potential from this, and the negative potential from this in between those two. And I have 7.5 volts of negative potential in the negative. So it appears, again, I can't confirm this, but it appears that the cycle that this is returning energy is on the wrong cycle. It's sending energy when a circuit's not calling for energy. But next, I need to clean this up so I could work with it easier without shorting stuff out. And I need to see if I could take that, because that's going to waste. That's feeding positive voltage into a negative terminal. Because the negative of the supply is much lower than the negative of this. This might be where my hidden power is. I don't know yet. So I'm going to work on seeing if I could take that negative terminal in between this bridge rectifier negative and that negative, and figure out a way to harvest that 10 volts and those current pulses. Now remember, I'm measuring the current going through that, and that's 207 milliamps. So 10 volts at 207 milliamps could deliver a pretty good pulse, or could make pretty good AC out of that. to go into a transformer to take that back. So is that where the gain went? Is it going to the negative? Is there no gain? I don't know. But in between the negative terminals, I have a pretty big potential difference, 20 volts peak to peak. It might even be more because this multimeter, I mean this scope might max out at 20 volts. But VRMS, my real voltage, I'm getting 7.5 volts there at 200 milliamps. So I need to see if I could take that and what happens. But another interesting turn of events. Happy New Year. Visit the MOOKER Forum and join me and watch me and do your own experiments. You know, I think it could be done. Have a good one.